guys and gals? Nary here from Drakewing Gaming, and some of you know me on Twitter, the Gaming Dragon. Today I'm coming back at you another Let's Play episode of Sileo, Tales of a New Dawn, and we are getting to the big match between Diego and Kyrex. So this is the game has been building up to this moment, y'all. We're about to see exactly how it goes down between these two ex-lovers. So let's see how this fight turns out, shall we? Alarm Chan, you are up, and let's friggin' go. Alright. The battle had begun, but unlike the others, both contestants stood in their corners even after the bell had rung. The two made eye contact, both looking solemn and determined. The crowd's chatter had quieted into a whisper, eagerly awaiting what would happen next. Diego lowered his stance with Kyrex smiling in return. Then Diego charged. I was sure I'd never seen Diego move that quickly before, and judging by Kyrex's surprised expression, neither had he. It was close, but Kyrex narrowly managed to get out of the way. Diego bounced into the rope and closed in on Kyrex, who was now standing near the center of the ring. The two began circling one another as words were exchanged. Alas, I couldn't make out what was being said from this distance. This continued for several more moments, before Kyrex threw a sudden kick which Diego intercepted with his left hand while striking Kyrex in the gut with his right. Kyrex then twisted out of Diego's grasp and went for a strike with his tail. This landed, but Diego remained standing, unfazed by the blow. Diego threw retaliatory punches into Kyrex's chest, followed by a vicious surprise kick. Kyrex staggered back by a single step before regaining his stance and throwing a strong blow back in Diego's gut. Diego winced slightly, but otherwise didn't let his discomfort show. The two continued trading blows back and forth, neither gaining any particular advantage until... Round 1! Timeout! The two fighters dropped their stance and Kyrex appeared to chuckle slightly before turning tail and retreating to his corner. Diego seemed unamused, but nonetheless returned to his. A few moments passed with each fighter hyping themselves up in their respective corners before the PA called the beginning of the second round. This time, both fighters rapidly closed their distance and immediately went on the offensive. Well, I am most pleased to see their conversation did not harm their fighting spirit. They're fighting with all the vigor I could have hoped for. Diego didn't have time to say, but did I take it the talk went smoothly? It is like I said, you had nothing to fear. Although I obviously cannot disclose any of it, confidentiality and all that, I'm sure that it is a task best left to Diego. That's something, I guess. I'll get the details from him later on. And I assume you're going to keep your promise, then? Worry not. I know I overstepped. I shall not interfere in the future. Good. And no more secrets, yes? Well, that depends. What? Ty chuckled to himself before slipping away from the topic, instead busying himself by initiating conversation with Lucas. Round 2. Timeout. My attention grabbed by the bell, I returned my gaze to the ring to witness both fighters returning to their corners once more. Each was looking a touch more disheveled than when I had last looked. The previous rounding taking its toll on both, but neither scoring any points. Quite a fight so far, right? Who would have thought it would be such a close match? This is exciting! But I hope Diego wins. Round 3. Fight! The third round began, and the two went right back in, immediately throwing punches. This wasn't just a fight for those two, it was personal. Wow, that one looked like it hurt! I can't believe no one has been knocked down yet. They aren't holding back at all. I guess neither wants to lose to the other. Diego said before he went in that they had a score to settle. This isn't your average fight. I can feel it. There's so much energy between them. It's so exciting. Looking towards the ring once more, I saw Diego throw a fierce kick which successfully knocked Kyrex off his feet, only for him to roll and get straight back up. His counterattack was equally fierce, briefly staggering Diego, but not long enough for Kyrex's following strike to not be dodged. Diego's dodge was successfully pivoted his position to Kyrex's right, with Diego launching a firm and highly effective strike into Kyrex's gut. Kyrex was briefly staggered. Diego took advantage of this by charging into him, knocking him flat on the ground. Diego threw himself on top, and... Round 3, Diego, score 1-0. About time, that was great! Yes, go Diego, knock the scales off of him! I hadn't rightly expected Diego to take the first point. I was nonetheless incredibly glad that was the case. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is Diego's ex, yes? Right, you are. Say, I'm sure I've seen him somewhere before. Anyway, such a beautiful fight. I am in awe of their strength and determination. You can tell they have a history. We truly are witnessing something special. You are so gay, you know that, right? But of course. Whatever else would I be? Round 4. Fight! 1 second, y'all. Water time. And they're off again! By the gods, look at the musculature in Diego's arms! Hey! I know. He's yours, right? Fear not, I do not presume to steal him away from you. You'd better not. Jay fired me a cheeky grin before wandering over to Russell and striking up conversation. Looking towards the ring, little had changed. Diego and Kyrex were still duking it out with all the vigor and fury one would expect. Both of them were starting to look a little tired. I watched the battle for a few moments before I was approached once again, this time by our most unlikely pairing. Diego has improved. He's fighting well. I'm surprised he's actually winning. Kyrex struts about like he's hot shit, all bluster. He did win last year. Yeah, so? He clearly ain't winning this year. Round 4 to Kyrex, score 1-all. Maybe I spoke too soon. Kyrex returned to his corner with a smile as Diego picked himself up off the ground. His expression was one of annoyance and frustration. Once back in his corner, he took a few deep breaths to calm himself, all the while holding eye contact with Kyrex. Kyrex looked back with a calm expression. Knowing what I knew, I would have expected Kyrex to gloat. Instead, he remained calm, quiet, focused. Round 5, fight! The fighters got back to work, neither of them hesitating for a minute. As soon as Diego arrived in range, Kyrex spun and threw his tail like a whip. The strike got Diego directly in the face, sending him down to the ground, blood spewing from his nose. Foul! Red flag to Kyrex. Score 2 to Diego. In a most unexpected move, Kyrex knelt down beside Diego. The look on his face was almost like apologetic? Diego scowled at him before picking himself up and wiping the blood from his nose with his forearm. Is it just me, or did that actually seem like a mistake? Either that or he's a good actor. I don't know what to believe at this point. Do you really think that was accidental? Kyrex lost a point. He wouldn't do that just for fun unless he knew he'd win regardless. Time will tell, I guess. Both fighters returned to their corners once again. Diego grabbed a towel from beside the ring and wiped himself off before cracking his neck and raising his fists, ready for another round. He was in the lead. Just one pin would be enough. Looking over at Kyrex, however, he seemed undeterred and confident. Diego had noticed this too, judging by his continued scowl. I wonder what was going on in his head, what he was thinking, how he was feeling. He'd really screwed himself with that one. I was almost glad he did it. While my nose hurt like hell, I got a point out of it. I wasn't going to say no to that. I looked over in Kyrex's direction, and the two of us locked eyes. He appeared solemn and unusually dignified. In those final months, he would have jeered or made fun of me. Yet he did nothing of the sort, appearing almost mature at that moment. Somehow I still didn't believe it, despite everything that had been said. I couldn't bring myself to trust him. Round 6. Fight! I moved in, this time playing a little more cautiously. I only needed one more point, and the tournament was mine. I expected Kyrex would do similar, given the point he just gave me. Confirming my hypothesis, we both came into punching range and began to circle one another, waiting for the other to take the first move. What? Ain't gonna get revenge for that bloody nose of yours? And leave myself open to a counterattack? You're dreaming. I know you a little too well for that. Do ya? Pretty sure you're trying to rile me up. Get me fighting recklessly. That right. You sure it weren't no accident? I'd be surprised if it was. Well, my aim was a little off. I weren't meaning to hit you in the face, promise. I'm sure you weren't. Honest, swear it on me life. Our conversation had Kyrex distracted, giving me a golden opportunity for a jab in his gut. Oof, you sly bastard. Kyrex was smiling despite the blow, but why? What was he planning? Surely he had something up his sleeves, or perhaps he was just enjoying himself. After all, it's not every day you get to brawl with your ex. I admit I was enjoying myself a little too. Suddenly Kyrex went in for a strike that I managed to avoid and counter. Not that counterattack did a whole lot. Between the two of us, we threw the occasional punch. Kyrex went in for another tail whip, this time more accurately aimed. It connected, but did little to throw me off balance. Do you always fight this slow? Speak for yourself, you look tired. What, and you don't? Heh, it's been a long fight. Round 6. Timeout. Damn, this is like watching a Rocky match. We each lowered our fists and returned to our corners. Kyrex was right. It had been a long fight. My nose was still bleeding and my body was aching all over. Nonetheless, I was still standing and not about to go down anytime soon. I wouldn't lose. I couldn't lose. Not in the final round. Not against Kyrex. We still had a score to settle, and I wasn't going to let him win, no matter what it took. I looked over at the crowd, seeing many of my supporters looking optimistic. They'd split off into groups and were chatting amongst themselves. Brian was standing with Logan and Eric. Shirtless and sweaty in front of Eric. I thought he was enjoying every minute of it. Round 7. Fight! It was go time once more. Little was achieved in the last round, so this time I was going to bring the pain. I briskly advanced, coming into range of Kyrex before opening with a kick. It connected, but it had little impact. Next I threw several punches, narrowly avoiding several of his own, before going in with another kick. I came crashing down to the ground. He'd spun around and swept me off balance during the kick with his tail. I started to get up, as he quite literally fell on top of me, crushing me in the process. Jeez, was he always that heavy? That hurt! I struggled to throw him off with moderate success, restarting the pin count several times. Alas. Round 7 to Kyrex. Score is 2-all. 2-all. There were still 3 rounds left. Whoever scored the next point was the victor. Was it too much to hope Kyrex would get another red card? Damn, Diego got played. I hate fighters with big tails. This is really close. You worried? A little. No matter who wins at this point, it was a good fight, but clearly I'd rather it be Diego. Can't say I mind if it goes on a bit longer. Are you being a pervert again? Maybe. Round 8. Fight! Kyrex and Diego once again closed their distance, preparing to knock the stuffing out of one another yet again. As was to be expected, both fighters started off cautiously. It would only be 1 point for either fighter to decide the victor, and neither of them wanted to lose. I must admit, I am proud of Diego's performance. The fact that he is matching Kyrex as well as he is, very impressive. I cannot help but be a little proud of Kyrex too, mind you. As I hear it, his aggressive fighting style nearly cost him the semis. Really? He was up against another strategic fighter like Diego. He won in the end, but I hear it was close. And he knows Diego is similarly strategic. I would say Kyrex's more restrained approach here is deliberate. He's keeping his cool rather well. So is Diego, actually. Things got a little heated earlier on, but they've slowed right back down now. I cannot imagine they are not completely exhausted after such a long fight. It has to be... Ty's words were interrupted by a sound of shock from the surrounding crowd. Returning our attention to the ring, Kyrex was on his knees, blood dripping from his mouth. Perhaps I spoke too soon. Lucas, what did we miss? Looked like Diego got revenge for that tail slap earlier, although not directly. Whatever do you mean? All Diego did was dodge. Kyrex got tangled up in his own tail and fell face first on the floor. I am most glad that was not a penalty. Oh, damn. Kyrex picked himself back up and wiped the blood from his face. He looked up at Diego, whose nose was still dripping blood, and laughed. He said something, and although I couldn't hear it, I could quite easily read his lips. Guess we're even. Diego laughed in response, before the two of them raised their fists once again and resumed brawling. Well, that certainly seems like a friendlier interaction than the norm. I assume your interference bore fruit. And I assume you're still not going to tell me what happened. 1 second, y'all. Water. Alright, let's get back to this fight. It would not be my place. After all, I would not dare stick my nose in your business. Right. Do not underestimate my abilities as a mediator. Round 8, timeout. Score 2-all. Once more, the two fighters returned to their corners, each picking up a towel and cleaning themselves off. There was a line of blood down the middle of Diego's chest, and Kyrex wasn't looking too much better off. I feel sorry for Diego. He looks hurt. They both do, but I doubt they're feeling sorry for themselves. Round 9, fight! Oh, excuse me. I suppose you're right, dude. This is probably, like, cathartic for them. Sorting out their differences is the only way men know how. That's one way of looking at it, but they spoke already, didn't they? They did. I don't know what happened. All I know is it went fairly well. Huh. I guess words can't solve everything, right? Brian, Russ, this is so exciting. Ha, right? It's kind of scary, too. Do you think Diego will win? It's really close. Win or lose, they both fought, like, well, super well. No matter what happens, I'll be proud of Diego. Round 9, timeout. Score 2-all. Wow, they timed out again. They're being too cautious. I looked back over at the ring to see Diego slumped to his knees. Kyrex, noticing this, sat down in front of him and the two began to speak. I found it also strange. They almost seemed friendly. Perhaps friendly was the wrong word, but they certainly didn't seem to hate each other like they did. Just what happened between the two in their talk? I was more confused and curious now than ever. Ha! 9 rounds, 2-all. You know what that means. It means you've got to stop holding out on me. Could say the same to you. Kyrex sneered his usual sneer, but with an unusually playful smile tucked away in the corner of his lips. I slowly pulled myself back to my feet, my muscles aching and searing as I did. Kyrex followed suit, not hiding a similar feeling of pain all the while. I took a few deep breaths, waiting for the call starting the final round. This was it. One last battle. Win or lose. I was ready. We were both bloodied and broken, but not beaten yet. We both stood in silence, my heart pounding in my chest, drowning out the sounds of the crowd. Kyrex looked at me, his expression one of sour determination. I bared my teeth at him. In action, he returned with a mocking smile. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our final round. Both of our combatants are on equal ground, only requiring a single pin in order to win the tournament. And so, may the best fighter be the victor. Let the final round begin. Kyrex moved towards the center of the ring, failing to hide a notable limp. I followed suit, hunched slightly due to the pain in my back. It surely looked amusing from the crowd's perspective, almost as though we were two decrepit old men. Hell, it sure felt that way. Kyrex and I arrived within range of one another, and it took everything I had to throw a punch. A punch Kyrex didn't dodge. Not that it seemed to have much of an impact anyway. Kyrex returned with a punch of his own, hitting me square in my arm. It struck a bruise, but that would likely have been the case no matter where he struck. Ugh, is that all you've got? Kyrex took this as a challenge, throwing another weak punch from his other arm. The effort of doing so caused him to wobble somewhat. This is my chance! I mustered all my strength and charged forward, grabbing him and trying to pull him to the ground. He slapped his tail to the ground almost like an anchor, successfully remaining upright as I stumbled to the floor. Kyrex tried to take this opportunity to pin me, but was too slow. I managed to crawl out of the way just in the nick of time, and with Kyrex hitting the ground beside me. Heh! Ain't this embarrassing? With great effort, I managed to pick myself up off the floor as Kyrex was slowly doing the same. We were both completely exhausted. Before long, we both stood facing one another once more. Kyrex strafed to one side and whipped his tail against my shins, causing me to collapse back to my knees. Kyrex grabbed my shoulders and tried to force me back to the ground. I resisted with everything I had, and in his exhaustion, Kyrex fell to his side next to me. I took this opportunity to fall on top of him, initiating a pin. Alas, he pulled himself out of it and slowly climbed to his feet. I rolled to the side and onto my knees before standing up once again myself. We faced one another yet again and exchanged several more blows before Kyrex glanced to his side and lowered his fists. Huh? What are you doing? Look! I followed his gaze up to the round timer. 5 seconds. 4. 3. So, that's how it ends, eh? There was an almost eerie silence in the venue. It was several moments before the PA piped up, announcing the result. I don't believe it, folks! For the first time in the history of the Woodcrest Combat Tournament, the finals have ended in an even tie. And so I announce our winners, Kyrex and Diego. I slumped to my knees as Kyrex turned back toward me and began to walk closer. His approach concerned me. I wasn't rightly sure what he was going to do. But then he sat down only a few feet away from me, breathing heavily and wearing a subtle grin. Alright, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and pause it right there. Thank you all so much for watching. Wow, what a fight. Oh my god. Who knew? Well, I had a feeling it was going to be a tie. Yeah. I had a feeling they would both, like, fight just as well as each other, and it would just end in a stalemate, but apparently they're both winners! So yay! They resolved their differences by beating the shit out of each other. You know, as men only know how to do, apparently. But anyway, y'all, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Leave a super thanks. Your tip if you can, it always helps. Until the next video, I love you all. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!